You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. So, Chris Vanderslice, did I say that last name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Now I've interviewed your wife for this podcast or a conversation, and now you're on it. How do you think about that?
I've never really been interviewed before. I didn't think I was that important, so I'm a little...
Well, let me tell you something. You are. I mean, I know you as like this. So my image of you is these camping trips we used to go on. You've been a very good friend of my dad's for a very long time, basically a brother. I mean, I called you Uncle Chris for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was like, you were like this guy that was like, hey, Rob, want to start a fire? I was like, start a fire? You're like, yeah. I was like, aren't we not supposed to do that? You're like, it's okay, we're camping. You know, we can light half the forest on fire. It'll be all right.
Well, no, that's not okay to light half the forest on fire.
Yeah, Smokey
when
the
you're
Bear
camping.
says don't do that.
Let's just get that straight.
But I mean, it was so cool because you were like, let's make the fire as big as possible. But you remind me of this mountain man type guy. You had these long what is it, pony style?
No, I just had it in a ponytail
yeah.
at the time. Yeah.
And then you wore a Redskins jersey, and you just like, you would walk into the woods at night, and no one would see you for like an hour. We're like, where did Chris go? Like, where'd he go? And you just come back
firewood.
with this big ass like pile of sticks, like a mountain man just dropping in front. He goes, I got some firewood. I'm like, okay. And then, like, you would sit down, and then I remember I don't know if you remember this, but it was you and my dad were having an argument at, like, 1 in the morning. Like, it was jokingly, but it was, what's worse, getting attacked by a bear or getting attacked by a shark? And you were consistent at the fact that being attacked by a bear is the better way to go? Or no, it was the worst way to go.
I think that would be way worse.
The worst way to go, yeah.
Because a shark...
Yeah.
You don't know it's there until it hits you.
My dad's like,
whereas
are you nuts?
Bear, you hear the bear in the woods. There's this terror and anxiety of being hunted that you don't sense when a shark hits you.
Do you remember what my dad said to you?
No.
He said, fine, if you believe that, he goes, on your 60th birthday, I'll strip you down naked to your bare flabby ass. I'll strap a ring of meat around your neck and drop your ass in the middle of Yellowstone Park. I've never laughed so freaking hard because the way you answered it, it was just like a 2 o'clock in the morning moment. You were like, I'll do it. Like, you were just like already in bed. He goes, deal. And it was just like, hearing that, I just couldn't stop laughing. I mean, it was cool because I have to agree that, I think a shark would probably be the worst way to go. Because the way my dad was thinking of it, he put it into a way I could agree with, was the fact that if a bear bites you, just aim your head first and, get at the teeth right in the skull or something. But if a shark, you can't see it, and they usually make you suffer. Drag you underwater and stuff.
Nah, that's not necessarily the case. Different kinds of sharks will approach that in a different types of way, but almost all sharks will take a bite and run.
Yeah, because they don't like the taste of your blood.
It's not that. It's just that, that's just the way they predate, is to hit you and disable you and then come back. I mean, a lot of sharks feed on dead stuff that's floating around. They're not necessarily going to sit there and eat you whole alive the whole time.
It's not like Jaws.
No.
Even though that's my all-time favorite movie.
Jaws is an exaggeration.
Done.
Even Peter Benchley came to realize, because after Jaws came out, I mean, ocean fishermen nearly fished sharks out of existence.
Yeah.
And even Peter Benchley eventually came to realize that he had done a horrible thing in misrepresenting what sharks are, and that he single-handedly almost was the cause of them becoming extinct, and he eventually became a shark activist.
Well, I mean, besides being a giant influence, mostly from camping and things of that sort, and also when he used to come over and watch football, and just you were very influential in my life and everything like that, and I'll never forget those
I hope
moments.
it wasn't in a bad way.
It wasn't in a bad way, but it was just cool because you would take me on these little trail walks and nature walks, like at night. Dad was setting up the camper or something, and he was working on some things, trying to get food ready, hot dogs, s'mores. You know how he cooks a marshmallow for 4 hours, and I'm like the type that just sticks it right in the fire and then pull it out. And you always got me interested in fire. I know it's not a bad thing, but you remind me of like a Beavis type character.
I was just about to say, I'm an Aries, so
that's
fire sign.
That's
fire
what
person.
That's what you talked about. You said it was Taurus. I thought. Though.
However, I will admit to being highly influenced about being excited about fire because of Beavis.
Yeah.
Beavis and Butthead.
Because I'm a Capricorn, so I know about water and those types of things I'm attracted to. Kind of goes with my sign a little bit. And then you were talking about, I think with my buddy Caleb, who's a Taurus, you were talking about the idea that fire is Xander.
Xander Kushwa?
Yeah. Remember that time he hit me with the bike? We were playing chicken, and he didn't think I was going to move, and I didn't move, and he hit me with the bike and just dragged me all the way across the street.
Yeah.
Those are fun moments, man. We used to ride bikes and go to the store and stuff, but not to tangent off on that, but I wanted to get the people out there listening to know the mountain man I know and love.
Well, obviously, or ironically, it's kind of funny that you say that. I mean, I love camping, but I moved to the beach from the D.C. area because I love the ocean. I love the water.
So you're a surfer type, kind of.
Yeah, and part of what forms my reasoning around which would be worse, a shark or a bear, is that I'm comfortable out there sitting on my surfboard in the waves. I've done it for 25, 30 years and on and off, and I've only seen one shark come close enough to me to have frightened me.
I'm more afraid of like a kraken, to be honest with you. It's hard to believe that there's not something out there like a giant squid or something that could just...
Well, obviously giant squids do. However, a kraken is kind of sort of a mythological beast.
But, Blackbeard was real.
Yeah, but again, the myths surrounding Blackbeard might be larger than Blackbeard himself was
having,
in actuality.
Bomb fuses in his beard and he'd light them as he would jump aboard ships.
Yeah, well, maybe firecrackers, but I doubt bombs because he wouldn't have lasted too long if he did that,
It's just interesting, like, the way, like, a tale can get spun, and when it's like the same ththing if you tell one kid down a line, he goes and whispers it all the way down to 20 other kids. The story changes. The story, it gets twisted around a little bit and ends up not being the original intent or the original idea, which is kind of how I conceptualize with the Bible. Like, it seems like it's been taught so much that it becomes like this alternate. Who says Jesus really walked on water, or was he only standing in ankle deep of water? And so the main question is, I know we kind of diverged from how I usually start the podcast, but what's your story? What do you do for a living? Because I really don't even know what you do for a living. I just thought you collected firewood and built log houses.
Well, that could be a fun living, but I've had a lot of different livings over the years, but pretty much the entire time that you've been alive and that I've been real close friends with your dad, I've been doing computer and IT work. The company I work for, obviously down here it's kind of sketchy. You can't always find enough of one type of specified work to keep you afloat all the time. You have to have
many hands in different...
Yeah, and the company I work for, my boss has a lot of experience with telephone systems and telephony. He's an electronics engineer, and he's a sound person. He's really into the engineering of audio equipment and the engineering of sound, and so he started off his business back in the early 80s as a sound man running sound for bands, and he quickly discovered there wasn't enough really of that to keep a person fed and roofed and clothed for any length of time. So he started doing the telephone stuff along with that, and we pretty much do professional sound installations, telephone system installations, and maintenance.
Does that get difficult at times?
Oh yeah,
Because you got to think like
it's ever increasingly difficult because with anything technological these days, everything jumps forward every 6 months or
the iPhone 10's
faster.
already out, so I'm stuck with the iPhone 7 Plus, and honestly, that's as far as I want to even dive into it. It has a big screen. I can play my video games on it, which is nice. That's all I really do on it, besides check Facebook when I'm pooping or something, and that's about it. But the fact that having an Alexa or something in the house, I can't do it. It's too much. Yeah, I know.
There's two of them listening to us right now.
Yeah, that scares me. It's the whole fact. My buddy bought me an Echo 2 years ago, Google Echo. I have not turned it on. It's been in the same box. He got it for me for Christmas. I'm sorry. Like, the AirPods are nice, nice Bluetooth, and I like the 55-inch TV he got me for my birthday. It's pretty sweet. But I'd be comfortable if it was a 20-inch TV. It's just the fact that, like, as the generation and like new generations arise, kind of come up above, everyone's so like compared to their phone and all these new advances in technology. It's hard to think that one day the cell phone's not going to turn into a chip you just get implanted in your baby, and next thing you know where your baby's at all times. Like people chipping their babies and stuff, but you're also able to make calls by just kind of rolling your eyes back, and eventually we're going to be so disconnected from the reality of this world, and that scares me a little bit. And the reason why I asked what you do for a living is because you don't seem like a tech guy. You literally do not dress like a person that would be into tech at all. You don't act like it. You live this I came in the house, you were doing yogi poses and these types of things like yoga, and it's like you're stretching too. It's like, well, it was like this guy is like in touch with the reality of life. Like, you have to enjoy life's moments, the beautiful sound of like birds chirping, the sound of the waves crashing, these things that send you down into a peaceful and serene place. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because like when you think of a lot of computer people, you picture the nerd with glasses or a person that's constantly dealing with like, how may I help you, just constantly dealing with like the old lady that's like, how do I turn my phone on? It says it's on. Ma'am, did you activate Siri? What the hell is a Siri? I don't know what I said. That whole thing. That's got to be annoying. So when you're going there and you're installing these parts into someone's house, or you're installing things for them and trying to kind of set it up the way your brain has been, figured out how to do with the knowledge and basis behind it, do you seem that it's difficult, or it becomes kind of like a car person working on a car? After a while, you start picking up the tools for the trade in a way.
Well, first of all, the business that we do is mostly business to business. We support hotels and restaurants and other types of businesses on the island and in other towns around here. On occasion, we do things in homes, but usually we have sort of a rapport or relationship with those clients from a business relationship before doing so.
They're not new ones. They're more like they've been around.
Yeah. Like I said, generally it's a business to business type situation. I guess for me, I come from a generation where a lot of the computer technology that we have now was in its infancy and being invented, and it wasn't readily available to everybody, like the Commodore 64 back in the late 70s, early 80s, and stuff like that.
AOL.
Well, there was no, that came along in the late 80s,
that
early
to me
90s.
is
That's a whole different thing than what I'm talking about, because that was when even then most people didn't have the money to have a personal computer. Okay, and when I was a kid, hardly anybody had, because they cost $5, $6, $8,000 back then. So really, only very wealthy people had personal computers in their homes. And
I mean, when we got a computer when I was little, it was the family computer. You can't
Robbie.
look up anything dirty on there.
Robbie, you just turned 21. I just turned 55.
I know.
There's a significant amount of time difference
no doubt.
when we're talking.
You grew up
I'm
in-
talking about
My dark age would be your
My-
more would be like, oh yeah, sure. That's like when someone has got one Super Bowl ring and then talking to someone with 10, like, okay, well, call me when you got 8 more.
when I was a little kid. We were just getting TV remotes. I was in high school before we had Betamax and VHS. My generation grew up with stereos and televisions as kind of sort of the highest level of technology.
If you were rich,
So
you had one of those in your house.
my, like your version of explaining to your grandmother how to use her cell phone.
She explains to me how to use the tablet. That's what's weird.
Yeah. Well, I understand that your grandmother is into programming, so she's probably maybe a little more technically astute than maybe
dives
some
into
other
my realm.
grandmothers. But the bottom line is, that sort of scenario where somebody your age is helping their parents or their grandparents
Is more
with a
common.
computer or a set-top box, like an Amazon Fire Stick or something like that. For me, that was helping them to set up a stereo, or to learn how to use a remote. These are things that I grew up with and had sort of an ingrained, inherent understanding of because I grew up with them. Where their generation, it was some new technology they couldn't fathom because they were used to getting up, walking across the room, and turning the dial on the television to turn the channel.
So you were more in touch with the base model of stuff that I'm used to kind of understanding now. Stuff that you're already seeing get reproduced and things like that. You're like, I remember when that was back like this, like before we had, the car, we had a wagon and stuff like that. You're looking at it kind of like that. Does that give you...
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that all of the things that we have now, our cell phones, our laptops, tablets, smart televisions, set-top boxes, whether they're provided by cable or Internet of Things devices like the Fire Sticks and the Fire Cubes and Roku boxes and things
and
of
the
that
Fireflies.
nature. All of that stuff was kind of like stuff that people envisioned in a science fiction movie down the road. Like we can walk in and we can say, Alexa, turn the living room on. It turns the lights in the living room.
You literally
on.
just said that and your Alexa turned on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I said her name.
And it just said okay.
Because I said her name. Well, example, Alexa, living room off.
Okay.
Too much technology. The
Alexa,
lights are off.
living room on.
Okay.
She did not listen to you.
The
That's
plug in the wall probably did. Alexa, living room on.
Okay.
Doesn't that scare you?
I fight with her sometimes.
Just throw her.
She doesn't listen. She doesn't listen to me. I scream expletives at her and ask her why she's so useless. It's fun, but anyway.
That's what...
back to what we were originally going for here. I come from a generation where we went camping, we rode our bikes, we played sports. We went swimming in the ocean or a swimming pool or whatever. So my roots in being in touch with life are in those things. They're not in technology. Technology is something that I kind of fell into through employment.
I think that's what my dad tried to kind of part onto me a lot through my childhood was the whole fact like I was so hooked to my Xbox, and even when we went camping I brought my Xbox sometimes, but he was like, why don't you go outside and enjoy the day, and then like, you know, me riding my bike to the store to maybe play a game of Mortal Kombat or
When
something.
we were kids,
like,
it was so different. Our parents would kick us out the door. Get out of my hair. Go play. You know. Nowadays, parents are afraid to let children out of their sight, and so they keep them in the house, and you got to have game systems and whatever else to keep them entertained.
Sometimes it's just fun to play tag with your friends, or you know, find the nearest stick and then put poop on the end of it and chase somebody.
Yeah, we used to play all kinds of crazy games, kick the can, and you know, hide and seek, and all different versions where people would end up being tackled instead of tagged, and you know, it was. You know, it was ruffian stuff. It was fun.
What's funny is, as much as we talk about like how you were like into fire and being like pyro and kind of taught me my little ways with the fire, another funny time was when my dad fell asleep in the Ravens chair, the little lawn chair by the fire, and you were like, watch this, and it was the 4th of July, and you had one of those fireworks, and you lit a bunch of them under his seat. Oh my God, I've never laughed so hard just to watch him get up and scream and like run around like his ass was on fire. It was the funniest thing in the world. And I remember he was mad at you, and you were just sitting there laughing the whole time, and I was dying on the floor. And then, like, you guys would joke around, like, take these Roman candles, go out there and do what we did when we were kids and shoot each other with them. But, like, it was always fun to kind of, like, because you would watch us experience something that you've experienced as a kid and be like, you were bringing us into a way of how you guys experience your childhoods, like using fire and being able to actually have fun with your imagination. A lot of things that I seem like that's what scares me with technology nowadays. Like you look at, I've been bumping into, like I leave my phone in the car when I go grocery shopping because I don't want that there. First of all, the reason is phones are progressing and they're also degressing. They went from being super big to super small to coming back to super big again, to the point where I can't fit it in my tight jeans anymore. You know what I mean? And I go into a store, so I'm like, I'd rather just leave the phone inside. I don't need anybody calling me or doing anything. It's nice to have it there in case there's an emergency, but for this 30 minutes, I need myself. I need to unwind and kind of come to my own ground in a way. And I go into the store, and there's so many kids on their cell phones not looking up from them. Even adults doing the same thing, and they bump into me. And I'm like, really? Excuse you. And they look at you like you're the one that has the problem.
Yeah,
I'm
they
like,
give you stink eye, like, what are you doing bumping into me?
It's like, yeah, but you're the one that's totally turned off to the world. Like, there's so many beautiful things. I mean, right now, you can literally hear outside the window birds chirping, and this type of experience that you wouldn't be able to do if you had Alexa playing like some random. Oh, I don't even want to say it now because now she's gonna say something.
Well, I mean,
sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah,
we're older, and most of the time the TV's on, so we don't always necessarily hear the birds and stuff outside.
You're so turned off to the world.
Living down here in downtown Ocean City, sometimes you want it that way because it can get pretty crazy out
Hustle
here.
And bustling. I mean, that's why a lot of the times, like people in New York, they walk around with headphones on because it's like literally so loud, they can't, or you're gonna lose your hearing. Yeah. You have to drown it out somehow. And it's like, we get so used to these types of things, we get so influenced on it. You don't want to be like that. You want to be able to turn yourself down to the base model in a way. Like, the one that, like, yes, I still need to use lights. You know, we're not in the candle ages anymore. We have this gift of the light bulb for a reason. You know, someone discovered this. But the fact that you don't need to have your TV on, your laptop on, your cell phone playing a video, 30 different things going on at once, you know. And it's like, we're totally we completely ignorant to us doing that. I find fault with it all the time. I do it all the time. I have my laptop, my TV on in the background doing background sound while I'm on my phone at the same time. Like, do I need all these things running? You know, it's just all it's really doing is wasting power.
Yeah, well, I have some things that I guess would fall in the category of learning disabilities that kind of, they both allow me a super intense focus and at the same time a super sensitively easily distractibility. You know, if the TV's on, I have a hard time focusing, and someone's talking to me, I have a hard time focusing enough on either one to catch either of what's going on. Or I'll be so intently focused on the TV that I won't even realize somebody's trying to talk to me.
Well, I have ADHD, so like the best thing for me, besides like if I get sitting in my room for a very long time, and I'll be playing video games, listening to something on my laptop, while at the same time having my phone on YouTube or playing a game on my phone, and I have so many outlets going off at once, and it's like it's my ADHD trying to funnel all the energy I have. But I find if I go outside, I can focus on one thing at once. I can actually take the time to chill, and
Yeah.
if I get moving, and it's really cool because you're so influenced with technology just with your job, and then me not even knowing that that's what you were into or that's what your job choice is, because you learn how to turn it off. A lot of people talk about how they're constantly on, they can never turn it off. Like, you're able to turn it off and kind of set yourself back. Like, you ever just have those moments, you have a long day at work dealing with computer and just seeing wires all the time, where it's like you need to come home, sit in complete like just silence and just kind of relax and kind of feel your feet into the floor. Because I'm not saying technology is overall bad, but
the whole reason that I moved here was because I wanted to be able to come home from work, no matter what it was I was doing for work, and get out there in the ocean and ride some waves.
so where did that surfing influence come from?
Well, when I was in junior high school was what it was called when I was a youngster.
That's like middle school.
Now I guess they call it middle school. It's not quite the same grade wise. I think now middle school is like
7th and 8th grade.
Is it 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I was in school, we had elementary school, which was 1st grade to 6th grade. Then you had junior high, which was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then you had high school, which was 10th, 11th, and 12th.
I like that better.
And of course, this was back in the mid and late 70s when I was in junior high school. And the big thing back then was skateboarding. That was like
It's like down here.
the new counterculture craze. It was when Skateboarder magazine and all the skate magazines started to, it was kind of when freestyle skateboarding was invented. And I took an interest in skateboarding. I as a kid, I skateboarded everywhere. And I eventually started going to the Bethesda Surf Shop, which was owned by the same people that owned Sunshine House up here at 64th Street before it closed. And there were all these posters on the wall because they sold surfboards and wetsuits and surf clothes and stuff like that, along with all the skate gear. And I'd go in there and I'd see the pictures of the big waves in Hawaii with guys surfing on them, and I'd look at the surfboards. I was just like awestruck,
King Kamehameha.
Yeah, so I had a mental awareness and interest in it, and of course skateboards are the land going
Surfboard. Or a surfboard is a skateboard without wheels.
Yeah, so. Well, it's kind of an entirely different thing because concrete or asphalt
Hurts a hell of a lot more than water.
Well, it's not. That's not necessarily true.
I will take
a big wave
going fast and hitting the water. I used to go and lay right in where the waves used to crash.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh,
I seem to remember a few years ago when your father told me about an accident you had on a jet ski. Where you got pretty beat up.
Water was not what hurt. The jet ski is what hurt.
I'm sure the water did some hurting because basically, especially when you're talking about a wave, when it's a big wave, the tension of the surface, when you hit that at speed, it's like hitting concrete. It's hard.
Oh, I flew off. I used to use an Ultra 200, and I flew off probably. I mean, it was going flat. I booked it across one side of Ocean City from the bay, all the way across the whole bay to Ocean Pines in a matter of 5 minutes. I was going almost 80 miles an hour on that water. It was so flat. And I remember I slipped off. I skipped like a beautiful rock on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I was not at all hurt, but I swear, I mean, yes, it did not feel good. It probably would have knocked the wind out of me, but I was really embarrassed, so I hopped on that sucker and drove off again.
Yeah.
The worst thing I've ever experienced, and no one believes me except one of the jet ski guys that was working there, is I killed a seagull by flying into it.
Yeah.
I was going like 70 miles an hour, and it was coming up to a no-wake zone, so I let go of the pedal, or the throttle, so it was going to slowly, inertia was going to slow me down and everything like that. And this seagull, I thought was going to fly up and move out of my way like they usually do. He didn't fly up until last minute and flew up, hit me right in the right part of my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, straight up, my shoulder looked like I shot a shotgun, just cocked back. And I looked back, I'm like, is he still alive? That thing was dead. Its neck was all twisted. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
And then you feel all guilty.
I was guilty, but I was like, holy crap, imagine how many people have that story. They flew into or they basically drove a jet ski into a seagull.
Well, that doesn't beat my story of having a shark swim right under the nose of my surfboard.
Now, okay, so a lot, you got to go to that story in a minute, but a lot of people don't know about that is I went to a shark museum in Baltimore, the aquarium, and not the main one, but it was like another Ripley's aquarium type thing, and they had like the giant megalodon, or the biggest shark that's ever been captured by man. His mouth's there or whatever.
No, megalodons have been extinct.
That's a dinosaur thing, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's dinosaur, but they haven't been around for a very, 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 very long
this
time.
was like, it was one of the largest sharks ever caught by man. It was the mouth of it, like the skeleton part of it, and or at least one that they found. And it was like a history museum with sharks. Well, they show what the perception of a shark would be if you were a surfer, and it was looking under. It looked like a seal. It looked straight up like a seal. I was like, I can see why sharks attack surfers. And back then, this is when the shark craze was kind of coming out. Like, a lot of people were like, at least for me, like, a lot of people were like, there's this surfer. That's when that girl lost that arm.
Bethany Hamilton.
Yeah, that famous surfer. And there's like a bunch of shark accidents that were happening. And
well, actually, I think Bethany Hamilton got bitten by a tiger shark. I think.
I compare all sharks.
It might be wrong. Well,
all sharks are the same.
No, but see, that's not the case.
I look at it, I see a lifeless dinosaur.
A tiger shark will eat anything. They're like the garbage cans of the ocean. They will eat. I mean, they've been
license plates.
Yeah, they've cut tiger sharks open and found license plates, trash
That's the scene
cans.
From Jaws too.
But Jaws is a white shark, and they don't do that.
When they were talking about when they cut open the shark in Jaws, and it was the tiger shark. And that's what the guy was saying. What you were trying to say.
Yeah.
The scientist dude that went in the cage and everything. He was trying to explain that there's no way that's the shark that bit the kid or killed the kid because it's a tiger shark. And they cut it open. There was just a bunch of trash and stuff inside of it.
And tiger sharks they'll go after birds. You know, like you'll get big birds that'll land on the surface of the water, and the tiger sharks will go after them. But when it comes to looking like a seal, a surfer looking like a seal, that specifically is for white sharks, because white sharks, seals are one of their natural prey items. So, like if you have a bull shark or a reef tip shark, or one of the many other species besides a white shark, it's likely that looking like a seal isn't going to do you the least bit of harm.
You remind me of Rob Schneider from 50 First Dates, where he got bit by a shark and he was getting sewn up, and then Adam Sandler's just like, why do you do this if you get bit by sharks? He goes, sharks are like dogs. They only bite when you touch their private parts.
Now, I'm not trying to say sharks aren't bad.
I mean, there's definitely,
they
I
can
believe they
be
make
bad.
mistakes.
Again, sharks are misunderstood, and they tend to be the dangers from them are kind of just mixed and mingled together because there's no general knowledge of
and how
the
the public
differences
sees it.
between the
Yeah.
species.
I believe that's also in relation, like, just how we kind of treat it. When you hear about sharks, it's usually a shark attack. It's something good about sharks, unless you're reading like a shark documentary and you're kind of learning a little bit.
Well,
But-
here I have to say this because a lot of people, when you talk about shark documentaries, they watch the Discovery Channel, and they talk about Shark Week, and
That's all Shark Week is one giant monster fest of just people getting
Yes,
killed and stuff. It's
exactly.
nothing
It
good
has
enlightening the fact
nothing-
of sharks.
when Shark Week started back in the 90s, it was very informative. It was scientific and factual based, and they went and tried to dispel a lot of the myths and show you the differences between the species. But now it's just one big horror fest, and it's really people are learning
what
the
people are
wrong
attracted to,
things,
man.
but they're learning the wrong things about sharks from it.
What's the one thing you get excited about when October rolls around? Because you know what's going to be on TV. AMC's what? Fear Fest. They have literally Mike Myers, all these
I know
people.
nothing about Fear Fest.
People are naturally, I believe, attracted to the idea of something extraordinary, either whether it's good or it's bad. But it seems like what mostly plays on TV is bad, or like things that could kill you. Like there's literally documentaries and Netflix shows that can be beautiful, like Earth, that give you a little bit of a hint of this thing can do this, but there's so much beauty in it too. But there's so many things like world's deadliest animals, it's something that implies a fact of danger that puts us on our edge of our seat, watch when we see an action or some type of movie. And I don't know if you know too much about this, but did you hear about the dino fish they discovered off the coast of Africa?
No.
There's a documentary on Netflix. If you have Netflix, I suggest you look it up. It's this 600 million year old fish or something that's ridiculous, like that they thought was extinct for so long. But the weird thing about the ocean is what we don't understand so much about the ocean, where it's just unraveling mystery.
We know more about space than we know about the
Exactly. In the space, we barely even scratched the surface on that one. We just discovered there's a white hole, which is the opposite of a black hole. You see white nothingness, like when a cartoon has the whole background taken out of it. But the dino fish. So what happens is on the bottom of the ocean, time basically it's like a whole nother world. You can think of the ocean as a whole nother world. But the whole fact that the deeper you go, like when we go into the deep parts of the ocean, time moves differently there. Where things aren't affected by, like if a meteor hit up here, it wouldn't really affect down there. So that's how they think it survived. And what happened is these fish that lived are like basically dinosaur, like prehistoric type fish. They're called the dino fish, called the relicanth. And it's the fact that like it survived down there for so long because of how the temperature and like the climate, everything down there is so different that it's like time moves slower there. Yeah. Like 7 years here would be like a year down there.
Well, the water down there is so much colder. And the colder the water is, the more dense it is. When you get down to, I mean, you can see the equipment they have to go to dive in that sort of, the bulletproof bubbles of glass and things that can withstand thousands of tons of pressure.
And even all that, it still messes with them when they come back up. They have to go slowly back up, and it's the fact that like they have to decompress in a chamber and everything, just like when they went up into space, and they have to like bring you back to a sense of gravity.
Everything is so different at those levels of deep ocean that generally the things that live there don't come out, because I imagine they would experience some life-threatening difficulties in the same way that we would if we tried to go down that deep without any sort of life support system that preserved our environment as we descended.
That's why a lot of them look like monsters, because they're literally living in complete darkness. like that lanternfish.
Yeah,
There's
the more the deeper you go down there, the more prehistoric the stuff down there looks.
the more badass it looks. Something out of a
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
But like I remember there was the part of an aquarium where there were like no flash photography and no stuff like that, and they had like a dark room, like at least super dark to us, even though the tank was kind of lit up in a way, but like just so you could see what was in there, so you're not like, oh, we put a fish in here and you're really just nothing in the tank because it's so pitch black, but you just believe there is. But they didn't want any flash photography because any flash lights or any like sudden, like they had to kind of bring them into the light slowly, because what would happen is they wouldn't be able to handle it. They'd have a shock attack. Like they would immediately die from it, the exposure to light. And that's just, it's scary to think how important that light is. But when I was talking about the dino fish and this amazing fish, when we talk about how time moves slower in the bottom of the ocean, so think of, like I'll say it's 7 years up here is a year down there. That whole factor is that you don't have sunlight. You don't have anything that makes it seem like if your body doesn't know if it's night or day out, it's the whole concept of it too, and plus the conditions being like that. But the reason that we found out about this fish was piracy off the coast of Africa. The fishermen that used dynamite for fishing were blowing up the coral reef that was disturbing them way down there, and like I don't know if it was whatever explosions got deeper than was expected, but it killed one of these fish, and the fish rose up, and the fisherman was selling it, and some research team found it and was like, holy crap, we need to try and find more of this. Then they took a deep down expedition and found this whole, just colony of these fish. And it goes to the whole aspect of, I made a koi pond one time. Now, I didn't know, but we stopped feeding these koi fish for about a year and a half. The water froze, so we're like, they're dead, whatever. No, a year and a half later, after not eating for a year, or whatever that fell in there, they hibernated at the bottom. And it's like they didn't get hungry. I mean, when they woke up, they were probably starving. But the whole fact that when you go to sleep, you wake up and then you're hungry. But you don't wake up because you're in the middle of the night, like, you don't even think about hunger. It's not on your mind. It's just as soon as you wake up, your mind thinks of it.
Your body slows down.
So that's the whole idea.
Your processes slow down, and it's like a bear. A bear eats enough, gets fat enough before winter.
Take a bear any day.
Bury themselves in a hole for.
I will be more than
5,
happy
6
to beat up
months
Boo Boo over
sleep.
Jaws.
I'm telling you, man. You do not want.
We're about to relive the argument you and my dad had.
You do not want to be hunted and know you're being hunted. Trust me.
How old are you now?
55.
5 more years. 5 more years.
5 more years.
Me and my dad are going to drag. Oh, I'm dragging his ass out to the middle of the ocean.
Look. Just the other day on Facebook, somebody said something, made a post to him, something about a surfboard, and I said, you better not be trying to go surfing without me, Skip Dixon.
Yes, I saw that. I was laughing because I thought of that moment with the bear argument.
Every once in a while, I needle him with something about sharks on Facebook. He just laughs.
He lives
every time.
in a town that is on an island surrounded by water. You got the ocean on one side and the bay on
the
the other.
He won't go in the water.
He
won't go any deeper than this, I
So
guarantee
do you know why the history behind that is?
No.
We went to Florida one time. I was very, very little. I mean, not old enough to get in the water yet. Now, I've experienced many times where I've almost drowned. And I remember one time fondly, my dad saved my life. Basically, I went in, and in Florida they have really deep sandbars. Well, I was so little, I went from the beach where I was being watched. Nobody was kind of paying attention. I fell in. The next thing I know, I'm seeing like half my face underwater, and like my eyes are open, so I'm looking at, all I'm seeing is the tree line diagonally. And like just slowly going under and up and just screaming and trying, just sucking in as much water as possible because I'm trying to scream for help. And I remember my dad just runs in and grabs me by the hair. Of course, I had my curly mop head back then. And rips me up, puts me up on his arms and shoulders and everything. I just remember looking down and thinking my dad was 1,000,000 feet tall. Like just that whole aspect of that. And then, so I've never been really afraid of water. I've loved it always, no matter if it's almost killed me. But my dad's story of, me and him went down to the beach when I was little in Florida, and he went out in the water, and he's like, why is there no one out here? And he was like, okay, and we passed all these signs, apparently, that we just didn't read, whatever. Apparently, it was sand shark mating season. My dad was out there. What he thought were waves flipping behind him and me laughing at him, throwing rocks at him, were actually sand sharks trying to mate. He didn't know until the lifeguard on the beach said, "Sir, I need you to," like yelling at him, "Sir, come in here, sir, come in here." He gets on the beach, he goes, "Yes, what's wrong? What did I do? Did I park wrong or something?" And the guy goes, "Sir, I want you to take a look out there in the ocean." And my dad goes, "Okay." And he goes, "You see that out there?" My dad doesn't have his glasses on, so he's like, "No, what, waves?" He goes, "Sir, I want you to look closely. We're in sand shark mating season." He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Those are not waves. Those are sharks trying to mate, and you're in their path." He goes, "You're very lucky you did not get bit, because this is like something you don't want to be near them on when they're doing." And he was like, "Oh my God." And I haven't seen him get in the water since. He'll jump in a pool. He'll jump in a pool, but that sand shark thing, like, that was it for him. He's like, "No more, I'm done."
He refuses to go in the ocean.
It's ridiculous. I would try and get him in there so many times. I mean, he stopped going into a pool after a while, after he kept seeing, I think it was like a documentary that came out that you're just swimming around in someone's pee. I'm like, "Dad, it's the same thing if you take a bath."
Oh, you mean that movie called Adults?
Yeah. I'm like, "Look, you gotta pee, man. It happens, you know. It's like going to a water park, and you don't see him get in the water at a water park anymore ever since, like, I was like 7 years old and that one Grown Ups movie came out or whatever
Grown
it
Ups,
was.
that's
Yeah.
the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, where they have the dye in.
Nope, not happening. He does not do it. And I've admitted to him multiple times, I pee in the water when I get in there. It's like, why would I go to the bathroom? I can just hop right in. He goes, "That's disgusting." Like, they have so many chemicals in there. But his whole thing, you know, we stopped going to water parks, stopped doing all that stuff. And I'm like, dang. I'm like, that's the same thing when it happens when you take a bath. He doesn't take a bath either. He takes showers. Doesn't do that. He's like, "You're just sitting in your filth." And I'm like, that's a weird way of thinking of it, how you love the water so much.
I agree with him on that point. I take showers, not baths.
Yeah, I don't take baths. It's just boring. You're sitting in your own feces eventually.
I understand it's relaxing to soak in but I'd probably take a shower and get clean before I did that.
I think the worst thing is getting a shower, getting clean, and then having a really bad crap afterwards. Then you have to I gotta get back in the shower. You've taken a shower twice in like 5 minutes. I have to. It's one of these scenarios. But I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, just to think, like, when we think of technology, and like you brought up to a good point too, on the fact that it is like amazing where we have become with it. You know, the idea that having a device in your pocket that can communicate with like another person across the world. And my one buddy that's in Wisconsin, I've never met in my entire life, but I've been friends with for 10 years now. And he texts me every day and everything like that. I used to play Xbox with him all the time. Someone that was very influential in my childhood as well when I was playing Xbox, when my dad was out and parents were out DJing or doing something. And, you know, he invited me to his wedding. It's happening in a year. And I'm like, that's amazing. He's coming down this summer and I'm finally going to meet him. And it's like, you know, it's weird. I know what he looks like. Everyone's like, "But how do you know that's him?" I'm like, I'm friends with his family on Facebook. I'm friends with everybody. I have his phone number. I FaceTime him, Snapchat him. And the best part about Snapchat is you know who the person is because they're sending you a picture, a selfie of their face. Mm-hmm. And it's just the whole idea, like, you can create a bond over technology. Some kid in Japan could be your best friend, like how we had pen pals and stuff like that, like emails and doing stuff. Like, this is like a better way for kids that I think it's good to be kind of disconnected from it at times. You don't want to be 100% hooked. But kids that are homeschooled, who don't get to experience the real, like, the best part about public school is the fact that you're getting so much culture.
You're learning human interaction. You're learning how to associate with and communicate with and behave around other human beings.
And like someone that's closed off from the world, like they end up basically, if you don't have enough social interaction, we all have a social skill that needs to be filled. If you ever played Sims, I don't know if you know what that is.
No, I know what it is. But
Not the building city game, but like the life game where you get to create your own family and stuff. You have like a health meter, a bathroom meter, all these different types of things you have to kind of watch. It's kind of, when you're a kid, it teaches you how to take care of yourself. Obviously, when you're hungry, you need to get food. But the fact that what really scares me about technology is that, like, if you close yourself off 100%, you end up going mad. Like you end up talking to yourself, and then eventually you'll end up starting to answer, and that's where the whole social interaction thing is. But technology can go to points where it seems like we're pushing it past the limits. Like, why do we need the next iPhone 30 when we could be working on something more way beneficial? Like, technology has so many beautiful things into it when we apply it to science and things of that sort.
Let me stop you right there for a second, because this is a point that really is important for everybody to consider when it comes to talking about not just technological advances, because this kind of thing's been going on since way before computers and cell phones and whatnot came along. But when the internet was invented, it wasn't originally called the internet. It was called the DARPANET.
That's a scary
and ARPANET. And basically, back in the 60s, when the first network connections were made, everything was all about how can humans benefit from this ability to network. Like the original internet was a series of telephone line links between universities, so that the universities could share files and information, and send email and stuff like that. And that's kind of where the idea that when the internet was first invented, it was, everybody wanted to call it the information highway. It was the idea that all this information would be out there that would be freely
government
available,
conspiracies,
freely available and consumable by humans for good. Okay, and when the internet first came along, and when it started to get to the point where people could afford to have computers and buy internet connections at a reasonable and affordable price, man, it was fantastic. You were talking to people on the other side of the world through chat programs, and you found people like, I love Formula One. Hardly anybody in the United States knows what Formula One is, much less cares about it. And I somehow had gotten talking. Yeah, somehow I got talking to this guy in South Africa about music and recording, and he's an avid Formula One fan. And next thing you know, I got this guy in South Africa that I've never laid eyes on in my life that I'm having these fantastic conversations and a relationship with over a couple of things that I really was into and loved. And the internet was like that in the beginning. But then the tech bubble came, and everybody realized that hits weren't actually a business. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but the big thing back in the day was that everybody had a hit counter on the bottom of their website to show how many people had visited the website.
That's how YouTube is.
And the hit count was that was the thing. You sold advertising based on this site has this much of a hit count, and everybody goes there, but there was no real product there. And so we had the tech boom and the tech crash because people started, tech companies started failing because there was really nothing there.
There's no product.
There was no product there. And then what happened is now we're at a point where corporations, businesses, practically own and run the internet. And now you've got almost anything you want to try and access, you got to pay for. You've got major news publications, training programs, information about, forums that have information that you could learn about technology or other subjects, and you got to subscribe to join them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
I
information, the idea of the altruistic idea of the internet and the information highway and the bettering of humanity through the assimilation of and consuming of information is completely wiped out into a profit paradigm.
Yes. So many times I've experienced trying to usually cheat on a test or something with like looking up a quick thing, and then it's like, to view the full document, come here. Then you have to subscribe and pay a certain monthly thing or start a free trial that lasts. Well, like, the information is no longer free. We don't have the Freedom of Information Act anymore. It seems like it's just everything's like it's a toll booth that's always set up. We have all these things where someone's like, just give me a piece, You see a good news article, and after like you get 2 more free articles to look at. It's like, why can't I just have the process of information? I mean, the fact that the internet is at my fingertips and I've dived into the realm. I mean, I haven't just dived in. I've freaking swan dived into the conspiracy theory realm. And so many things are coming to light where internet is taking the blinders off. But it seems like to get down, like, it seems like it's just another sellout type thing, where the music industry became a sellout type thing, and a lot of artists kind of went to selling their thing instead of making there's very few artists out there that even make music just to make music.
It's not so much a sellout thing as it is the people in control of the medium don't want to control the medium for the purposes of bettering humanity. They want to control the medium for the purpose of fattening their wallets.
Personal gain.
And it's just, for example, you buy a new computer. For most people, the experience of buying a new computer involves Microsoft Windows. And when you open that box and start the computer up for the first time, you run through this wizard that, by law now, I think, has these settings that you have to agree to or turn off before you can continue to connect to a network or create a username and password for you to create an account on the computer for you to use the computer with. And these things are all on by default, and they involve things like the ads you will see. The things you type in or search for will be sent to Microsoft for statistical purposes. Turn the location on so that we can help to provide you with this experience that will serve you more particularly to you. But in the meantime, in order to do that, all of this information and everything that you do has to be sent to Microsoft.
You ever heard of Vault 7?
Now, right now, I'm going to tell you, Microsoft does not give anything away. When you buy that computer, somewhere in there is a cost that's being passed on to you for the purchase of what is now merely just an installed version of Windows. It's not even a disk that you can install on a computer yourself. You don't get that product anymore. You're just like paying for the right to use the Windows that's on that machine. So you've already paid for Windows. Now, why does Microsoft need to make more money off of you by collecting market research money with your data?
Why not? We're always obsessed with getting more, so
it's terrible.
It's corruption.
It's just greed.
What happened to the idea of bettering the man or bettering the other the other human beings.
Well, it's for Microsoft. It was never about that. For Microsoft, it was always about how much money can we
Bill
get out of
Gates
people.
and his rich ass.
If you ever read, like if you got a server version or a professional version of one of their operating systems, if you were ever to read the license agreement, it states in there that Windows is designed to be more expensive the more you use it. In other words, the more machines you try to put it on and the more you try to connect them together, the more expensive the things become.
I experienced that when I
by design.
When I tried to buy Microsoft Office for my computer. And it was like, to install this, you have to buy this program, and you have to buy this, and there's just like, it would just be faster if I just hooked up a credit card machine to my computer and started swiping away. Like, it's ridiculous, all the what we call hidden fees and all these types of things, where it's like, oh, you can't use that without this, you can't do that without this, you can't do what you want to do with the program that you thought or what we sold to you was, because it has other hidden fees inside of it.
Right, and it's not limited to operating systems. It's all the stuff that's been going on with Facebook and private data and the apps that connect to Facebook, or the like buttons and the stuff that people put within their apps or on web pages, and all the data that's collected. That's all so that Facebook and their partners can earn money off of each other by selling the data back and forth. And I can remember being really excited when smartphones first came along, because, again, like the internet, an app that you downloaded and put on your phone wasn't about collecting your data so they could make money off of selling what you were doing.
Yeah.
It was about, well, man, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this with your phone? So this paradigm where things are invented for the good of humanity are always turned into something to line somebody's pockets with money and completely stamp out the original intent of the good of humanity behind it, is just snowballing and repeating itself in all aspects of technological advancement. And when you go into other areas of manufacture, I mean, the government and the military do all kinds of things with technology that nobody ever really envisioned them doing with technology or equipment that they invented.
That's with Vault 7 I was talking about. If you ever know about that, what that is. It's like
I've
the
never heard of
24
it.
projects in Vault 7 that was released on WikiLeaks by that guy that was just arrested.
Julian Assange.
Yeah, he released all these articles about this thing from CIA contractors, showing the programs like Operation or Project Kangaroo, where you're able to hack someone's Wi-Fi and that can jump using like a kangaroo type reference to other different systems, hacking them, and then stuff like Mission Impossible crap with computers and coding and all that, and all your information getting sent somewhere away. Honestly, if you want to see what I'm looking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's mostly like dumb YouTube videos and things for my podcast and that whole thing. And I wouldn't go deep down into it. I mean, if you look at the folder that says porn, you're going to find porn. I'm just letting you know. I label my stuff neatly. And it's just the whole fact that, like, if someone's really interested in what you're doing and ways they can advertise you, I'm pretty sure everyone's experienced, like, you look up something on the internet or you're talking about something in a conversation like how we're doing right now, and the next thing you know, you go on your phone and you get an advertisement not even 5 minutes later for that exact thing you were looking at. You're like, that's really weird that just happened. You think it's a random coincidence, or is it them listening into you? Like, the government just found out about people, or not the government, the people just found out about the government hacking your AirPods, like those wireless headphones. This was on Christmas Day. I listened to a podcast where that information was released, and like they're listening into your conversations. They were able to arrest people also through Alexa. Alexa recorded a whole conversation and gets sent to a Google database and stuff like that. That's, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but if the government is really, like, there are good things about that. The fact that, like, if a certain word pops up or a certain thing pops up, it might help us locate a terrorist or something that might be scary. But the rare fact that that could happen is ridiculous, because the fact that, like, all we do is look for preconceived notions of what we think, I guess, what we should be looking for. Like, what the TSA does with a profile and stuff like that. That's the whole idea. Like, he said bomb, so start recording now. Like, he could be a terrorist. There's no
But see,
aspect
here's the
of where that would
problem.
happen.
Here's the problem. That's not even what's going on. You may have been a little young when all this stuff kind of happened. I'm sure you've heard of Edward Snowden.
Yes. Snowden's the guy that released the articles on WikiLeaks. I got him mixed up.
Well, no. Edward Snowden is considered to be a traitor by a lot of people.
He's a CIA traitor.
But he's actually a whistleblower.
Yes.
Because he tried to go through a couple of proper channels, but was thwarted. And people prior to him, specifically a guy named, I think his name is Edward Binney. His last name was Binney. I forget what his first name was, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, he tried to blow the whistle on what the government was doing with surveillance programs in the same way that Edward Snowden did.
That's Fault 7 that I was talking about, by the way.
But, yeah, Edward Snowden was working for a third-party contractor that was contracted by the government to do security and systems administration on government networks. And he stumbled across this information, which basically proved, when it was released, that the government is just collecting everything without warrants. They collect everything. They have devices that are attached at the points of presence of major cell phone carriers and internet providers.
They send out that information.
And they just suck up everything that goes through, and then they store all of it without a warrant. Everything is captured and stored. And then they're supposed to need to have a warrant to be able to do this, but people with access to the law enforcement or government systems can just use certain applications that have been built to go to type in a search and find whatever's in all of that stored data that's been collected without warrants for whatever they want. And that just goes against the principles of
right to privacy.
Well, there's I don't believe there's actually a right to privacy within the Constitution, but there is protection where when the government or law enforcement wants to gather or obtain information on you by surveilling you, that has to be done legally by providing evidence that warrants them surveilling you.
Yeah, they can't just bust in your house and arrest you for something.
Well, they can't clip a recording device onto your phone lines and record everything that you say on your phone lines. But they do it anyway. Legally, they can't use that in court against you. Your rights have been violated when they do that. And this is essentially the same thing as them walking up to your house, clipping a butt set with or leads onto your phone lines with a recorder and recording every phone conversation without going and getting a warrant for it first.
Heads up for all the government agents that listen to my podcast and any conversations I have with anybody, they're filled with taking craps, so mostly what you're going to hear from me. It's the Vault 7, I want you to look up when we get done podcasting, like when I leave here. I want you to kind of do some research on that in your own. But that's what Edward Snowden releases. It was referenced that he was released by a bunch of CIA contractors. It was 24 different projects about how the CIA and Google and Microsoft and Linux and all these hackable things that they can use to hack these programs and systems to send your information out somewhere and get it through another way. And then also hacking companies and this types of stuff that I don't want to dive super deep into because my brain it just can't handle it. Because I like to think of technology, honestly, it's with anything. You can take too much of anything and make it a bad thing. Too much water can kill you, too much of this, whatever. Well, the way we take technology, seems the most popular notion of it is turning it into a bad way, but there's beautiful things about it. The fact that it can connect you with so many things, the fact that we're using VR goggles and surgeon simulations where they can predict a bunch of different outcomes and do a bunch of different surgeries on different scenarios without actually having to do the surgery, so they can be ready for anything, and being able to train your expertise in that way. And also the fact, like, with my podcast recorder, people say, why don't you just use a WhatsApp app or do a thing through Facebook where we can just talk online so it's easier, we don't have to meet and have a conversation. Because I want this physical interaction. Like, I like this. I'm sitting literally in your house on your nice, comfy, like 70s looking couches, porn star patio couches, and you're in this beautiful home with a bunch of eccentric little decorations, and you had that palm thing. I wanted to get freaking, what's it, Home Goods? The things about the, what is it called?
It's palmistry.
Yeah, palmistry,
It's a ceramic hand that has the lines on your hand and what they mean, and it's actually Cheryl's, it's not mine.
Yeah, I figured. She's the spiritualist.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea, like, it's cool to have this interaction and being this physical contact, because over the phone it wouldn't be this real. It wouldn't have this same effect as we're getting now. We both just had a wonderful conversation. How long do you think we were talking for, to be honest with you?
I have no idea.
Well, about an hour and 20 minutes. So it's like, the whole fact that, like, that's just amazing that we had this connection. It felt like I was sitting talking to you by a bonfire again. Like, I'm pretty sure, and like, we should just light this table on fire in front of us and just start talking about sharks.
No, we shouldn't do that. The sprinklers will go off. That wouldn't be fun.
We don't want you to disappear for an hour looking for firewood and coming back with half the town of Ocean City.
Well, we should go camping so we can do this around
for
a
sure,
campfire.
Man. There's the one thing I realized about my bringing a podcast recorder and actually recording conversations. Like, I want to do it at restaurants. I want to do it because you have those conversations at 2:00 in the morning where you make these relationships where, like, you don't know what was said exactly, but you just have those moments you're always going to remember, and you're always going to think about those as formative moments, and your imprinting of that person onto your life. And I've experienced that with, everyone and all of you guys, Kirk, Tyler, Horton, all of you guys that have been camping with us, and we've had these giant parties together and these football feasts and eating s'mores. You made me one of the best s'mores I think I've ever eaten.
Dude, the camping football parties, that was my idea.
Well, hats off to you, good sir.
I mean, your dad and I kind of snowballed it together.
The best moments were watching my dad scream and curse at freaking Ravens.
The actual speaking of the event was me. I was like, dude, we gotta bring a TV for the football game to the campsite and just have
some crabs out or something. Eat some crabs.
Well,
and
you guys
shrimp.
can have crabs.
Yeah, it was weird. You were not involved in that at all. But you would eat the hot dogs and stuff. My dad would.
Yeah, hot dogs. And
you were
corn.
the ones that brought cheese dogs. You brought cheese dogs to the party, dude. Oh my God, you murdered me.
I know. The one time I brought. Cheryl is from the Philadelphia area, and they have this thing called hoagie salad, where you get like an Italian hoagie, and you cut it up into little squares, and then you put it into a bowl and
mix it up.
You mix it up with some oil or mayonnaise. I don't know which it is, and the Philadelphians will probably kill me because I'm bastardizing what it is, but it's really, really good. And I know I bought a big bowl of hoagie salad to one.
I swear the two best things about those football parties that we had were just sitting out in the lawn chair by a bonfire and the TV on the other side where we're all enjoying nice hot dogs or burgers and corn that was cooked in tinfoil above the campfire. But the fact that you were a Redskins fan, my dad was a Ravens fan, and whoever's team was playing, one of you guys were always rooting against the other one and laughing when the other one's cursing at the damn team. Those are the funnest things. And then, as it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, you're just munching down on some leftover hot dogs and stuff and just enjoying it, and then probably hitting the sack right afterwards. But that whole thing was it was a trip, man. And I'm glad that I could experience those with you, man, because those are some fond memories I think of.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to help you learn how to enjoy
life. You and my dad really taught me how to get down to the base of getting out of the technological age and kind of experience what you guys experienced as kids.
Yeah.
And it's something that I wish I want to definitely get my kids influenced on too. One day, and just no kid should grow up not knowing what a real s'more tastes like, and especially having one of my dad's 10-minute marshmallow cooks. Like, the fact that he sits there with that patience and does that, I swear to God, I just want to slap it out of his hand sometime. Like, you're so proud in this golden brown marshmallow.
Fine wine shall not be served before its time.
That's a good quote. That's a great one. Well, I appreciate you being on my podcast, and I'm glad we could finally get this out there.
It was my pleasure.
Hopefully, it was a little bit like, I guess you weren't expecting it, because it's not really an interview but a conversation. I'm glad we could just kind of
like I said, I didn't expect anybody to ever want to talk to me because I didn't think I was that interesting, but
you are, trust me.
Everyone's
got an experience.
It's been very enjoyable, and I've loved you for a long time, and I always enjoy spending time with you. So
I love you too, man. And thank you, Uncle Chris, for being on this episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening.